Hello and welcome to the News Round. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Thank you for joining us. This is where we do you a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. The headlines. National Council of State passes vote of confidence in President Tinubu, insists that any change in government in Nigeria must follow constitutional procedures. Federal government accuses Chinese firm of fraudulently attempting to strip Nigeria's assets. And federal government to establish 10 first-class oncology diagnostic centers. Plus, Russia claims NATO and Western special forces were directly involved in planning Ukraine's cross-border incursion into Russia. That's News Round in View. Thank you so much for joining us today. We begin News Round with the National Council of State meeting where President Bola Tinubu received a lot, that is a vote of confidence for what the Council describes as the achievements made in the last 1 year. The Council passed the vote during its first meeting under the administration of President Tinubu at the Presidential Villa in Abuja.
It's the first National Council of State meeting of this administration. In attendance are governors, the President of the Senate, some ministers, and former Chief Justices of Nigeria, as well as presidential aides. Former Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan were physically present, while retired Generals Abubakar Abdulsalam and Yakubu Gowon joined the meeting virtually. President Bola Tinubu arrives to preside over the meeting. Over 5 hours later, a delegation arrives to outline the highlights of the meeting. As expected, the recent hardship protests were considered following a report by the National Security Advisor, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, on the security situation in the country and the protest.
The Council thanked Nigerians at large for resisting any unconstitutional move to change government. If anybody is not satisfied with the government, any current administration, there's always an election coming. So you wait for election and cast your vote the way you deem fit.
Aside from Mr. Dele Alake, 6 other ministers made presentation to the Council on the progress made in each sector of the economy, with emphasis on economic diversification. According to the Minister of Finance, the Council commended the economic drive of the current administration, which according to him is yielding positive results.
In broad terms, the economy is growing. The balance of payments, in particular, the trade balance and the current account balance, are in surplus. The exchange rate is stabilizing. And inflation, though high, uncomfortably high for the liking of Mr. President and his team, it is slowing and it is set to fall.
The Kwara State Governor said the Council commended the President after listening to the presentations by the ministers.
The high note of the meeting was the unanimous passage of a vote of confidence on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Members, especially those of the Nigerian Governors Forum, were satisfied with the presentation by the members of the Federal Executive Council.
Following this meeting, the governors went into another meeting with the president, this time a closed-door meeting where they say they had a fruitful discussion, which made them realize that they are on the same page. They also had a high point in that meeting when another vote of confidence was given to Mr. President. From the Presidential Villa, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, is seeking a special court to try cases of crude oil theft considering that it currently has hundreds of cases of crude oil theft that it's investigating. The Director of Investigation at the Commission, Mr. Abdul Karim Chukul, made this known during the investigative hearing of the House of Representatives Special Committee on Crude Oil Theft in Abuja. According to the Commission, in 2019 alone, there were over 400 cases charged to court, while in 2022, about 200 cases were charged.
The investigation of crude oil theft continues despite Parliament observing its annual recess, as a special committee of the House of Representatives meets with government agencies. The Niger Delta produces the bulk of the country's crude and also houses illegal refineries and oil thieves.
This may sound funny, but it's genuine. You give out crude oil that sustains Nigeria's economy in your own backyard, and yet you sleep in hunger.
Absence of PMS and AGO in the NNPCL floating station has enabled illegal bunkering.
The Niger Delta Development Commission is questioned by the special committee on its efforts to address crude oil theft in the region.
If you want to say that you are going to do any pipeline vandalization around Nimbe area because of the road NDDC has provided, you will not go there because the security operatives, both Army and Navy, can get there at any moment's notice.
The lawmakers then turned their attention to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
Do you consider the current legal framework that establishes your organization enough in terms of your operations for you to checkmate the illegal financial transaction that is embedded in the activities of oil theft?
We would love to have an improvement on our legal framework as it currently is. There are cases oil theft cases that have gone on for over 10 years, some much longer than that, and then sometimes again, from the Court of First Instance, you see it running to appeal and then Court of Appeal and then to Supreme Court, So this also affects a lot in conclusion of the cases.
Are there any plans to incorporate more advanced surveillance technology and monitoring systems at the EFCC to curb this menace of crude oil theft?
We're dealing with offenders. Definitely we cannot just tell them the solutions or rather the softwares that we're using. But what I want to say is we're deploying technology in dealing with this, both at the intelligence level, at the investigative level, and even at the level of prosecution.
The committee requests for statistics to assess the success rate of the commission in a fight against crude oil theft.
What convictions have you been able to secure over the years?
Is it conviction as to oil theft cases specifically?
Oil theft.
Like my colleague said earlier, we can give numbers to this, but we can be able to check our database and give you precisely what is that number it is that we have.
How many cases do you have before you? Do you have an idea? Just an idea.
I will not be fair to my organization if I just give a specific number. But I want to tell you that it runs into hundreds. Yes, if you look at our document here, 2019 alone, the cases that we even took to court is over 400. So 2022, the records are also here too. They are running up to 200 and something.
In the Commission's view, do you think there is need for a special court for EFCC to deal with this case? Yes or no?
Yes or no? Yes, I believe so.
Thank you.
As investigations continue, submissions are also received from other government agencies, and the committee vows to address the menace of crude oil theft once and for all. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The federal government has described as fraudulent efforts by a Chinese company known as Zhongshan Fucheng Industrial Investment Company Limited to take over jets on Nigeria's presidential air fleet. A statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Mr. Bayo Ononuga, says the federal government is not under any contractual obligation with the company. Mr. Ononuga was responding to reports that a French court had sanctioned the seizure of 3 Nigerian presidential jets, including a newly purchased Airbus, amidst a legal dispute between Zhongshan and the Ogun State government. The statement reads in part, the federal government is not under any contractual obligation with the company. The case in which Zhongshan is trying to use every unorthodox means to strip our offshore assets is between the company and the Ogun State government. Now, the statement further states that the Chinese company must have misled the Judicial Court of Paris regarding the use and nature of the assets it seeks to attach and did not fully disclose to the court as required by law, having failed to enforce similar judgments in the UK and the United States. Mr. Ononuga further says the federal government is working with the Ogun State government to discharge the frivolous order in Paris immediately. The Nigeria Immigration Service has announced the launch of a formal investigation into the incident of a female traveler who destroyed a Nigerian standard passport at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. A statement signed by the Public Relations Officer of the service, Deputy Controller of Immigration, Kenneth Udo, says the individual has been identified and invited for further investigation, and if the allegations are substantiated, actions would have constituted a breach of Section 10, subsection B of the Immigration Act 2015 as amended, with corresponding penalties outlined under Section 10, subsection 8 of the same Act. The statement adds that the Nigeria Immigration Service remains steadfast in its commitment to upholding the provisions of the Immigration Act in the interest of national security and to preserve the dignity and integrity of the nation's legal instruments. The federal government, through MedServ, the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority's wholly owned company, has begun the construction of 10 new oncology and diagnostic centers across the country's 6 geopolitical zones. The inaugural groundbreaking ceremony took place in Bauchi State and was led by the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. This initiative aims to enhance access to world-class oncology, amongst other health benefits.
The federal government is taking a major step to address healthcare delivery in the country. The Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital in Bauchi is hosting the 10 oncology and diagnostic centers to be constructed by the federal government across the 6 geopolitical zones. Other centers will be in Kaduna, Enugu, Sokoto, Oyo, Akwa Ibom, Delta, Kwara, Plateau, and Yobe states. The project is being implemented under the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority Healthcare Expansion Program following the successful launch of the first phase 5 years ago.
Between 2020 March and today, we've attended to 131,000 patients in that Kano Diagnostic Center. Over close to 700,000 tests. Individual tests have been done between the laboratory and the imaging.
It is important that the quality of care that we offer citizens of Bauchi and Gombe is exactly the same as is obtainable anywhere else in the world.
The program is considered a key milestone in the federal government's efforts to improve the nation's healthcare sector.
The mandate is for a federal project. There are 10 such groundbreaking ceremonies as the one today going on all over the country. It is national, it is federal, it is carrying all parts of Nigeria along and delivering in this important area of health delivery.
There are 6 cancer centers that NSA is doing. I think the money is available and those will be completed within 12 to 18 months. They will be opened. It has never happened in the history of Nigeria. Mr. President has also undertaken retraining of 120,000 frontline health workers.
The host Governor Bala Muhammad praised the president for his various health interventions in the state.
We appreciate good governance, and Nigerians appreciate good governance. With this outing, our politicians, our ministers are no longer armchair politicians sitting in the office, coming out and interacting with us and giving us the good news and setting the roadmap for changing the narrative.
The coordinating Minister of Health performs the groundbreaking ceremony. In the second phase of the initiative, the federal government is targeting to train 120,000 frontline healthcare workers. Hajera Aliyu, Channels Television News.
When Newsround returns, Society of Nigerian Broadcasters holds first national conference in Abuja. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. In Rivers State, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Tunji Disu, says his men are actively investigating the explosion that rocked the secretariat of the Action People's Party in Port Harcourt. Mr. Disu, who led a delegation of officers to assess the damage at this facility, called for vigilance while he awaits the outcome of the investigation.
What could have begun as a regular day for the Action People's Party, a relatively unknown political organization that recently gained popularity in Rivers State, took a sudden turn. Around midnight, an explosive device was detonated outside the party secretariat in the Highbrow New GRA area of Port Harcourt, causing some damage, including shattered windows near the blast site. Hours after the incident, the Rivers State Commissioner of Police, Tunji Disu, is leading a high-level delegation of officers to assess the damage at the secretariat. The inspection was carried out under the supervision of the national and state chairman of the party. The CP gives his initial assessment of the situation.
We deployed our teams to come here and take charge of the area. The bomb squad has been sent here, and I'm waiting for their report any minute from now. I will not want to go deep into that because I have not gotten my full reports. Definitely, everybody should be concerned about their safety and their security. I don't want to go deep down into some things I don't want to mention now, but most importantly, everybody have to take their security very important. Like I quickly sent in our officers in here yesterday, because anywhere there is explosion, there's likely to be a second one. So usually we move people away from that, and that is what my team succeeded in doing yesterday.
Reacting to the incident, the national chairman of the Action People's Party attributes the attack to the perception that several members of the opposition parties were planning to defect to the APP ahead of the October local government election. He called on the police to arrest and prosecute those responsible.
We are calling upon Mr. President, the heads of security agencies, to go after these criminal elements whose interest is to instill fear, instill violence in Rivers State. We as a party, we are not deterred. We are sure that they are getting the signal of Rivers people joining our party in preparation for the forthcoming local government election.
The state chairman of the party, Mr. Sonny Wokekoro, also voiced his determination, stating that despite the apparent intimidation, the party remains undeterred in its mission to reshape the political narrative in Rivers State.
These uncivilized acts of people who think that they are reservoirs of violence, who think that they are reservoirs of knowledge, who think that Rivers State must control whatever they want or whatever they direct. We have come to change the narrative. Whether anybody likes it or not, one thing that is constant in life is change.
This unfortunate incident is the latest in a series of dramatic developments that have recently characterized the political scene in Rivers State.
16 people have been confirmed dead and over 3,000 persons displaced in the 10 local government areas of Jigawa State, northwest Nigeria, following heavy flooding that wreaked havoc across the state. This was disclosed by the Executive Secretary of the State Emergency Management Agency at a media briefing in Dutse, the state capital. According to him, about 3,900 homes were affected, while a total of 2,744 hectares of farmland were washed away by the flood.
Gao in northwest Nigeria is among the states predicted to experience flooding this year by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. Thousands of homes and farmland were destroyed, forcing many to take shelter in public school buildings.
What of the time? And the top one have been moved past that.
16 people have already lost their lives as many towns and villages remain under siege by the flooding.
The number of households that was involved
is 3,936. Then the persons that was displaced, who are in various maybe primary schools, so it's 3,834 persons that were displaced. The number of hectares of the land that was destroyed by the flood is 2,744 hectares. And total death for this period is 16 people died.
Motorists are not spared as the road linking northwestern states to the northeast has been cut off.
My vehicle almost broke down here, so I have to offload and spend the night. The situation is very critical. Flood has washed away our rice, wheat, and sorghum farms. In fact, all our farms are not even accessible at the moment.
Officials promised to provide a temporary solution to avoid the disruption of economic activities.
So immediately when we got the information, we deployed a team of engineers to go and assess the situation and to see how we prevent public outcry and how we see and make sure that business activities are not disrupted within the states that links the road.
In the midst of this tragedy, the government urges residents to stay alert and assures that support will be provided to help them recover and rebuild. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, says broadcasters should be the torch bearers for a better Nigeria as they hold enormous influence in the shaping of the narrative that affects politics, culture, and security of the country. The minister, who declared open the first edition of the National Conference of the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters in Abuja, sought the partnership of broadcast media in the quest for unifying and developing the country.
It's a gathering of veterans, regulators, and practitioners in the broadcast media industry as the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters holds its first national conference with the theme, Broadcast and the Political Economy of Content Production in the Digital Age. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, who is the special guest of honor, is represented by the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Press Council. He congratulates the group and seeks the partnership of its members.
Your platforms have the power to illuminate the positive strides being made in our nation's governance, which will go a long way in reinforcing the public's trust in our democratic process.
Giving his keynote address, the chairman of the Channels Media Group, Dr. John Momo, who is represented by the general manager of the Channels Academy, Mr. Kingsley Ransa, urged broadcasters to innovate, adapt, and explore new business models in the face of ever-expanding digital content.
This gathering is not just a meeting of minds, but a milestone of our industry, marking our collective journey into the future of broadcasting in Nigeria. We are at a pivotal moment where the dynamics of content production are evolving rapidly, driven by digital revolution, and where our role as broadcasters is being redefined in the context of the political economy. My address this morning, therefore, underscores the importance of adaptability, innovation, and maintaining editorial integrity in the rapidly evolving landscape of digital broadcasting. Broadcasting has always been a powerful tool in shaping public opinion, influencing culture, and driving societal change.
Some veterans of the profession who gave goodwill messages welcomed the development and said it was long overdue.
My uncle said, I give it the responsibility of registering the Society of Nigerian Broadcasters. what seemed as mission impossible had today become mission accomplished.
Permit me to also say that it is hope at the end of the day, participants will have something to take home that will, of course, better the broadcast industry and, of course, the society in general.
Your dedication has shown over time. I mean, the hard work you have put in has brought us all the way to where we are today. You have paid your dues, and the industry has grown. Now we are at the point where we are talking about digital migration, AI, all kinds of innovation coming into the industry.
Intelligence gathering and security management is people-centered, and that is why at all times we build partnerships, we build collaborations, we build effectiveness in terms of feedback.
The Society of Nigerian Broadcasters has been in existence for over 60 years. It is now awake and seeks to create a platform for broadcasters to share ideas and shape critical narratives in the country. Delio Moyeni, Channels Television News.
We end the news round today with the war between Russia and Ukraine. Moscow claims that NATO and the Western Special Forces were directly involved in planning Ukraine's cross-border incursion into Russia. An aide to the Kremlin, Nikolai Patrushev, suggests that Ukraine had the backing of its allies to stage the invasion into the Russian region of Kursk. He says statements by the United States claiming it was not involved in Kyiv's offensive are not true, as Kyiv would not have ventured into Russian territory without Washington's participation and direct support. That's it on News Round today. Thank you for watching. I'm Olumide McCall.